Hello and welcome to the Revenge of the Drive-In commentary track for Beverly Hills Cop, one of the great action movies of the 1980s, one of the great comedies of the 1980s.
I was reading a piece of trivia. This was years ago, so I don't know if it's true. But that shirt that Eddie Murphy's wearing
Yeah,
is for like a high school somewhere in New York.
probably
And
the high school he went to then if he's from New York, or at least a high school that he knew about, I would
yeah, I
imagine.
think somebody who worked on the movie gave him the shirt or something like
Okay.
that. But after this movie came out, that high school had like orders for shirts to be shipped all around the world.
Of course. I mean, this is the one movie that could get you to wear Detroit Lions memorabilia, probably, right? Like, because the Detroit Lions performance certainly doesn't get you wanting to wear that stuff. My mom has this with, like, a few actors where, like, the way she talks about them, you'd think they're, like, A-listers. And I think Judge Reinhold is maybe the most jarring one because he at no point in his life was he ever even close to being an A-lister, really. He's just like that guy who jerks off in Fast Times.
Yeah,
And he's in Gremlins until he just disappears halfway through it.
yeah,
And, you
yeah.
know, he's in... I mean, this is, other than Fast Times, or maybe even, because this has a few sequels, more so than Fast Times, this is his biggest movie, his biggest role. And then he shows up in the Santa Claus, and he wears, like, Cosby sweaters in that movie. And he's kind of funny in that.
Yeah, but doesn't rape anybody. I
Right.
want to point that out.
That we see.
Yeah.
But anyways, with this, the Judge Reinhold, I looked him up here because he's like, he's the young, kind of plucky, awkward detective, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, look at him. He looks like, I don't know, he just looks like he's in his mid-30s, right? Maybe
Yeah,
it's how they
exactly,
do
yeah.
his hair or something. I looked him up, and he's, like, considerably younger in this movie than I am, and it was just depressing to me.
No fucking way. Hold on a
I
second.
guess it makes sense because, you know, Fast Times is a couple of years ago, and he was a high school student in that, but, you know, they fudge ages for actors for high school movies all the time, obviously.
Yeah, and
I would
also,
like to see The Rock in a Marriage Story type, like a career turn movie. Maybe,
One of
you
the-
know, how like Christian Bale will gain or lose a ton of weight. Can we just have a movie where, like, The Rock goes for an Oscar and just sheds all of his muscle and it's just this, like, scrawny dude in
The
a drama?
Machinist 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. Just something like that. If The Rock ever wanted an Oscar, that's the way to do it, because the Academy is obsessed with any, like, physical changes an
yeah.
actor does, and
Yeah.
and the Academy, maybe it's getting better, maybe it's not. I don't know, but they're a sucker for anyone who plays someone who's challenged in a way, you know, mentally handicapped or whatever, or any kind of like Stephen Hawking, that kind of thing, physically handicapped. And they're a sucker for physical transformations, and they're a sucker for comedy actors stepping out and doing drama. Although maybe not a sucker, because, you know, there's a lot of roles like that haven't been recognized, like Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems. But, you know, like Steve Carell in Foxcatcher, or I don't know. There's other, I can't think of them right now, but there's roles like that.
Well, you know,
Eddie Murphy in Dreamgirls. That's like almost 20 years ago now at this point, but he was nominated for an Oscar for basically playing Chuck Berry. They couldn't legally use the name. The Dreamgirls was based on the Supremes, written about the Supremes, but I think it was Diana Ross said, no, you can't fucking use the name Supremes. You can't use my name. So they basically kept the script, it might have been a Broadway thing first, changed the lyrics, changed the music, and changed the character names, but it's very clearly the Supremes. Like, there is very clearly a Diana Ross character, and Eddie Murphy plays a kind of an aged Chuck Berry, you know, in the 60s and 70s, right? So
Now, do you think the actor or the role that kind of ruined playing mentally challenged people was Cuba Gooding Jr. in Radio?
no, that's just one example of it not going so well. You know, there's John Travolta in The Fanatic, for me, is one of my favorite performances ever. Of course, you know, I think the Cuba Gooding Jr. one stands out to me because that was a movie that I saw in the theater and stuff. I usually liked it back then because I was dumb. I was 11 years old or whatever. But no, you know, there's other examples I know. Like, I think Harrison Ford in Regarding Henry, I think, is not too fondly remembered of a movie. I think he kind of does something like that.
I'd never even heard of that.
Well, there you go. Harrison Ford, late 80s, at the height of his fame, what a hit regarding Henry. you know, I guess it was that. I think it came out in like '88. I think that was the '88 for whatever was the year that Harrison Ford is like, no, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to appear in Working Girl, and I'm going to appear in Regarding Henry. And even though Working Girl, I think, was a hit, Regarding Henry, he's just like, yeah, let me just do a third Indiana Jones after this. You know, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done trying to do anything serious. You know?
Yeah, then I'm going to retire or semi-retire.
No, he kept going because then he got Jack Ryan. He's got The Fugitive. You know.
Yeah,
and then he
right.
started phoning it in this century. Let's give him a little credit.